When struggling barista Jenna agrees to pose as a billionaire's wife for $10,000, she expects a charade. But the real surprise? Falling for the man behind the mask. And he just might feel the same. Before we get into the story, comment below where in the world you're watching from today. The morning rush at Beans and Brews coffee shop was finally winding down. Jenna Moore wiped her forehead with the back of her hand and glanced at the clock. Only 2 more hours until her shift ended. And then she had to race across town for a makeup job. At 35, she was exhausted from juggling her barista job with her freelance makeup work, but the bills wouldn't pay themselves. "Jenna, your phone's been buzzing like crazy in the back," called Mia, her co-worker. With a sigh, Jenna untied her apron and hurried to the break room. 3 missed calls from her sister, and 1 from a number she didn't recognize. She called her sister first. "Katie, what's wrong? Are the kids okay?" "They're fine," her sister said, sounding frazzled. "But Dylan's school just called. He needs to be picked up. He has a fever. I can't leave work or I'll lose this client. And you know since the divorce, I'll get him," Jenna said automatically, already calculating how she'd reschedule her makeup client. "Give me an hour." After hanging up, she called the unknown number, thinking it might be a potential client. "Jenna Moore, this is Patricia Winters. We met at the Davidson wedding last year. I was the event planner. You did the bridal makeup." Jenna vaguely remembered her, a sharp-dressed woman with a no-nonsense attitude. "I have an unusual opportunity for you," Patricia continued. "One of my clients needs a woman to pose as his wife for a weekend. It pays $10,000. Jenna nearly dropped her phone. "Excuse me?" "I know how it sounds," Patricia said quickly, "but it's completely professional. My client, Callum Hayes, is attending a CEO retreat this weekend. His mother, who recently recovered from cancer, is hosting the event at their family estate. She believes he's been married for the past year." "And he's not," Jenna stated flatly. "No." Callum mentioned a girlfriend to stop his mother's matchmaking efforts during her treatment. The lie grew, and now she's insisting on meeting this woman. He needs someone believable, someone warm who can handle high-pressure situations with grace. "I remembered you from the wedding, how calm you stayed when the bride had that meltdown." Jenna almost laughed. "So you want me to pretend to be some rich guy's wife? That's crazy." $10,000 for 3 days, Jenna. All expenses paid. You'd arrive Friday afternoon and leave Monday morning. The amount made Jenna's heart race. Katie's rent was due next week, and the kids needed new school clothes. Her own apartment's water heater had just broken. "Why not hire an actress?" she asked. "Callum doesn't want someone who'll overdo it. He needs someone genuine, someone real." Jenna thought about her nephew waiting to be picked up from school, about the stack of bills on her kitchen counter, about how long it had been since she'd taken a full day off. "I'd need to arrange care for my niece and nephew," she said, hardly believing she was considering it. "Of course. The car will pick you up Friday at noon." After picking up Dylan from school and getting him settled with fever medicine and cartoons, Jenna called her makeup client to reschedule. 1 job down, but $10,000 would cover months of expenses. It seemed too good to be true. That evening, after Katie returned from work and the kids were in bed, Jenna told her sister about the offer. "Are you serious?" Katie exclaimed. "That sounds like the setup for a horror movie." "I checked him out online," Jenna said, showing her sister her phone. "Callum Hayes is legitimate, founder of Nexus Technologies, worth billions." Katie scrolled through the images of a tall, dark-haired man with intense eyes and a serious expression. "He's handsome, I'll give him that. But pretending to be his wife? What if he's a creep?" "Patricia assured me we'd have separate rooms." "It's just for show, for his mother." Katie looked skeptical. "And you're really considering this?" Jenna took a deep breath. "Katie, it's $10,000. That's your rent for 6 months. That's new clothes for the kids. That's breathing room." Her sister's expression softened. "You've done so much for us since the divorce. I hate that you're even thinking about this because of me." "It's not just for you," Jenna insisted. "It's for all of us. And honestly, how hard can it be? Smile, make small talk, pretend to be in love with a good-looking billionaire for a weekend. People do worse things for less money every day." On Friday morning, Jenna packed a small suitcase with the nicest clothes she owned. Patricia had emailed detailed instructions, including a brief on Callum's background and their relationship story. They'd supposedly met at a charity gala, dated quietly for 6 months, and married in a private ceremony. At noon, a sleek black car pulled up outside her apartment building. The driver took her suitcase, and Jenna slid into the back seat, her stomach in knots. After a 2-hour drive, they arrived at a sprawling estate surrounded by manicured gardens. As the car pulled up to the main house, Jenna spotted a man waiting on the steps. Callum Hayes himself, dressed in a crisp white shirt and dark pants, looking more imposing in person than in his photos. The driver opened her door, and Jenna stepped out, smoothing her simple blue dress. Callum approached with measured steps. "Mrs. Hayes, I presume," he said quietly, his voice deep and controlled. "That would be me," Jenna replied with a nervous smile. Up close, his eyes were a striking grey blue, his features sharp and defined. "We should establish some ground rules before we go inside," he said, guiding her a few steps away from the driver. "My mother believes we've been married for nearly a year. She's in remission, but her health is still fragile. This weekend means everything to her." Jenna nodded. "I understand. I've memorized our backstory." "Good." His expression remained serious. "Physical contact will be necessary for believability. Hand-holding, casual touches. Nothing inappropriate, but it can't look awkward between us." "I can handle that," Jenna said, though she felt a flutter of nerves at the thought. Callum studied her face. "You're not what I expected. Is that good or bad?" A hint of a smile touched his lips. "We'll see. Ready to meet my mother?" They entered the grand house together, Callum's hand lightly touching the small of her back in a gesture that felt strangely natural. The entrance hall was magnificent, with gleaming wood floors and a crystal chandelier. "Callum." A warm voice called from the top of the curved staircase. An elegant woman in her 60s descended the stairs, her face lighting up at the sight of them. Despite signs of her recent illness, her slender frame and the scarf wrapped stylishly around her head, Evelyn Hayes moved with grace and purpose. "And this must be Jenna," she said, reaching the bottom of the stairs and approaching with open arms. Before Jenna could react, Evelyn enveloped her in a gentle hug. "I've waited so long to meet you, my dear. When Callum told me he'd married in secret, I was heartbroken to have missed it, but now I understand why he kept you all to himself." Jenna returned the hug, genuinely touched by the woman's warmth. "It's wonderful to finally meet you, Mrs. Hayes. Please call me Evelyn. We're family now." Jenna felt Callum's arm slide around her waist, his body close to hers. "Mother, Jenna's had a long drive. Perhaps we could show her to our room so she can freshen up before dinner." "Our room?" Jenna struggled to keep her expression neutral. "That wasn't part of the plan." "Of course," Evelyn said, "though I hope you don't mind. I've scheduled a welcome dinner tonight with just a few guests. Nothing too overwhelming for your first evening." Callum guided Jenna up the stairs, his hand still on her waist. As soon as they were out of earshot, Jenna whispered, "Our room? Patricia said we'd have separate rooms." "Change of plans," Callum replied quietly. "My mother insisted on putting us in the master's suite. Don't worry, it has a sitting area with a couch. I'll sleep there." He opened a door to reveal a stunning bedroom with a massive 4-poster bed, plush seating area, and doors leading to a private balcony. Jenna's suitcase had already been placed near an elegant dressing table. "Bathroom's through there," Callum said, pointing to a door. "Dinner's at 7. Wear something formal. My mother loves any excuse for guests to dress up." "Wait," Jenna said as he turned to leave. "Shouldn't we, I don't know, practice or something?" Callum raised an eyebrow. "Practice? You know, being a couple. If we've been married for a year, we should be comfortable around each other. Right? Now we're like awkward strangers." He considered this, then nodded. "You're right." He moved closer, and Jenna's breath caught. Slowly, he reached out and tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, his fingers lightly brushing her skin. "My wife wears her hair down more often than up. She drinks her coffee black in the morning but switches to tea in the afternoon. When she's nervous, she fidgets with her wedding ring." Jenna blinked, surprised by the detailed fiction he'd created. And my husband? A shadow of something, vulnerability perhaps, crossed his face. He works too much. He's better with computers than people, but he calls you every night when he travels, even if it's just to say goodnight. For a moment, Jenna could almost believe this man standing before her was someone who had shared her life for a year. Then he stepped back, breaking the spell. "I'll return at 6:30 to escort you to dinner," he said, his professional demeanor back in place. "The guests tonight are close friends of my mother's, plus my chief operating officer and his wife. There's also a chance my brother might make an appearance, though we haven't spoken in years." "You have a brother?" Jenna asked, realizing how little she actually knew about him. "Alexander, younger by 3 years. We had a disagreement over the company direction." His jaw tightened. "If he shows up, just follow my lead." After Callum left, Jenna sat on the edge of the massive bed, feeling overwhelmed. What had she gotten herself into? Pretending to be married to a man she'd just met, navigating family drama and business relationships, all while trying to appear genuinely in love. She unpacked her nicest dress, a deep green silk she'd bought on sale years ago for special makeup clients. It would have to do. As she hung it in the closet, she noticed Callum's suits already arranged inside, his shoes perfectly aligned below them. Everything about him was precise, controlled. While preparing for dinner, Jenna tried to calm her nerves by reminding herself this was just a job, a strange job, but still just a performance. She could do this. At exactly 6:30, Callum knocked on the door. When she opened it, she found him in a perfectly tailored dark suit, his hair combed back, looking every inch the successful CEO. His eyes widened slightly at the sight of her in the green dress, her hair falling in soft waves around her shoulders. "You look beautiful," he said, and for once his voice held no calculation. "Thank you," Jenna replied, feeling a blush rise to her cheeks. "You clean up nicely yourself," Callum offered his arm. "Ready, Mrs. Hayes?" Jenna took a deep breath and slipped her hand through his arm, feeling the solid warmth of him beside her. "As ready as I'll ever be." As they walked downstairs together, Callum leaned close to her ear. "Just be yourself," he whispered. "That's why I chose you." His words sent an unexpected thrill through her. For just a moment, as they descended the grand staircase arm in arm, it was easy to forget this was all pretend. Too easy, in fact, and that worried her more than anything else. The dining room sparkled with crystal and silver, candlelight casting a warm glow over the elegantly set table. As Callum led Jenna into the room, 5 faces turned to observe them with obvious curiosity. Evelyn stood at the head of the table, beaming with pride. "Everyone, this is Jenna, my son's wife," she announced, her voice filled with joy. "Jenna, these are our closest friends and family." A distinguished older couple rose first. "I'm Margaret Wilson, and this is my husband, George," the woman said, embracing Jenna warmly. "We've known Callum since he was in diapers. It's about time he settled down," George added with a wink, "and with such a lovely woman." Next, a sharp-featured man in his 40s approached with a blonde woman. "David Mercer, Chief Operating Officer at Nexus," he said, shaking Jenna's hand firmly. "And my wife, Susan." Susan gave Jenna a calculating once-over. "So you're the mystery woman Callum's been hiding. We were beginning to think you didn't exist." Jenna felt Callum's hand tighten slightly on her waist. "I assure you she's very real," he said, his voice containing a hint of warning. Before Susan could respond, the dining room door opened again. A man who looked startlingly like a younger version, Sheriff Callum, entered, his tie loosened and hair slightly disheveled. "Sorry I'm late," he said, his gaze immediately landing on Jenna. Traffic was a nightmare. The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. Callum's body tensed beside Jenna. "Alexander," Evelyn said, her voice tight with forced cheerfulness. "I'm so glad you could make it. This is Jenna, Callum's wife." Alexander's eyebrows shot up. "Wife? Well, well, big brother. You have been keeping secrets." He approached Jenna with a charming smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. "Alexander Hayes, the less boring brother." "It's nice to meet you," Jenna said politely, feeling the tension radiating from Callum. "Let's all sit down," Evelyn suggested, clearly trying to diffuse the situation. Martha has prepared her famous roast. Dinner was a masterclass in strained politeness. Callum and Alexander avoided speaking directly to each other, while Susan Mercer peppered Jenna with questions about her relationship with Callum. "So where did you two meet again?" Susan asked, swirling her wine. Jenna smiled, recalling the backstory. "At the Children's Hospital Charity Gala last year, Callum donated to the art therapy program I was supporting. Jenna works as a makeup artist," Callum added, his hand finding hers on the table. "She was doing the event pro bono." "A makeup artist?" Susan repeated, her tone making the profession sound dubious. "How interesting." Jenna is also raising her niece and nephew, Callum continued smoothly. "After her sister's divorce, she's been supporting all of them. Her dedication to family is one of the many things I admire about her." Jenna looked at him in surprise. That detail wasn't in their prepared backstory, and it was completely true. How did he know? "Family is everything," Evelyn said approvingly. "And speaking of family, when might we expect some little ones? I'm not getting any younger, you know." Jenna nearly choked on her wine. Callum calmly passed her a napkin. "We're focusing on enjoying being newlyweds for now, Mother," he said. "But children are definitely in our future." His hand squeezed Jenna's gently, and she found herself wondering what Callum would be like as a father. Would he be warm and attentive or distant like he seemed with most people? "Well, don't wait too long," Margaret chimed in. "The best years of our lives were raising our children, weren't they, George?" As the conversation shifted to reminiscing about Callum's childhood, Alexander leaned forward. "So, Jenna," he said loudly enough to draw everyone's attention, "how does my brother find time for a marriage? When I worked with him, he was lucky to leave the office before midnight." Alexander. Evelyn warned. "It's a fair question," Alexander said innocently. "I'm just curious how my workaholic brother manages work-life balance now." Jenna felt Callum tense beside her, but before he could respond, she placed her hand on his arm. "It wasn't easy at first," she said, looking at Callum with a soft smile. "But we made a rule, no phones in the bedroom, and Sunday mornings are just for us, no matter what." She turned back to Alexander. "Sometimes love means making adjustments to your priorities." Callum's eyes met hers, something unreadable in their depths. "Well said, dear," Evelyn approved. "Now, who's ready for dessert?" After dinner, the group moved to the formal living room. For coffee, Jenna found herself seated beside Evelyn on a plush sofa, while Callum was pulled into a conversation with David Mercer across the room. "He looks at you differently," Evelyn said quietly. "I'm sorry," Jenna asked. "Callum, he's always been so controlled, so reserved. But when he looks at you..." Evelyn smiled. "I see the little boy who used to run to me with scraped knees and wonder in his eyes." Guilt tightened Jenna's chest. "Callum is not always easy to read." "That's putting it mildly," Evelyn chuckled. "After his father died, when Callum was just 14, he took it upon himself to be the man of the house. He grew up too fast." Her eyes grew distant. "When I got sick last year, do you know what he did? Moved every important meeting to the hospital so he could sit with me during treatments. Never let me see how worried he was." Jenna watched Callum across the room, seeing him in a new light. "He cares deeply about you." "And about you," Evelyn added. "I can tell." "Promise me something, Jenna. Don't let him retreat into his work when things get difficult. He needs someone to pull him back into life." Before Jenna could respond, Alexander dropped into the seat on her other side. "So, sister-in-law," he said, his voice lowered, "what's the real story? What does a makeup artist see in my brother besides his bank account?" Jenna stiffened. "I understand you and Callum have your differences, but I'd appreciate if you wouldn't insult our relationship." Alexander raised his hands in surrender. "No insult intended, just curious. Callum's not exactly known for his warm personality." "There's more to your brother than most people see," Jenna said firmly. "Is there?" Alexander's eyes narrowed. "Or is there less? The great Callum Hayes, all business, no heart. Ask him about the Palmer acquisition. Ask how many families lost their livelihoods because of his strategic restructuring." "Alexander, that's enough," Callum's voice cut in sharply. He stood over them, his expression hard. "It's getting late and Jenna and I have had a long day." "Of course," Alexander smirked. Wouldn't want to keep the newlyweds from their alone time. Evelyn rose, looking tired. Yes, it is getting late. Thank you all for coming tonight. We'll see everyone tomorrow for the retreat activities. As the guests made their goodbyes, Callum kept his arm firmly around Jenna's waist. When they finally returned to their suite, he immediately loosened his tie with a frustrated sigh. I apologize for my brother, he said, pacing the room, and for Susan Mercer's rudeness. It's okay, Jenna said, slipping off her heels. Family gatherings are never easy. Callum stopped pacing and looked at her. You were remarkable, especially with Alexander. I have a knack for difficult people. Comes with the territory when you work with brides on their wedding day. She smiled, trying to lighten the mood. He didn't smile back. What else did Alexander say to you? Jenna hesitated. He mentioned something about a Palmer acquisition. Said, people lost their jobs because of it. Callum's jaw tightened. Palmer Technologies was failing when we acquired it. Their products were outdated, their management corrupt. Yes, we cut jobs. The alternative was bankruptcy and everyone losing their positions. He ran a hand through his hair. Alexander wanted to keep the entire workforce, bleed money for years trying to save a sinking ship. It wasn't feasible. You don't have to explain your business decisions to me, Jenna said quietly. Don't I? He looked at her with intensity. You're supposed to be my wife. You should know these things about me. Jenna crossed her arms. Fine. Then as your wife, I'd want to know your side of the story, not just what other people say. For a moment, Callum looked caught off guard. Then, surprisingly, the corner of his mouth lifted slightly. You really are good at this. At what? Being real. He moved to the balcony doors, looking out at the dark gardens. Most people in my world are performing all the time, saying what they think I want to hear, looking for angles. Jenna joined him at the window. And what am I looking for? He turned to face her. That's what I'm trying to figure out. The air between them felt charged with something Jenna couldn't quite name. For a moment she thought he might reach for her, but instead he stepped back. You should get some rest, he said, his professional mask sliding back into place. Tomorrow we'll be busy. The retreat activities start at 9. Callum gathered some things from a dresser drawer. I'll use the bathroom first, if you don't mind. Then it's all yours. When he emerged from the bathroom in silk pajama pants and a t-shirt, Jenna was struck by how different he looked. Younger somehow, more approachable. He arranged blankets on the couch in the sitting area. You don't have to sleep there, Jenna said impulsively. The bed is huge. We could share it and still be feet apart. Callum paused. I don't think that's a good idea. Why not? We're both adults. And you'll be miserable on that couch. You're too tall for it. He seemed to consider this. If you're sure you're comfortable with it. I am, she said, though her racing heart suggested otherwise. After Jenna changed into her pajamas and completed her bedtime routine, she found Callum already in bed, reading glasses perched on his nose as he reviewed documents on a tablet. The sight was strangely intimate. Work never stops, she asked, slipping under the covers on her side of the bed. It would make a poor impression if the CEO showed up unprepared for his own company's retreat, he replied, not looking up. Jenna settled against the pillows, keeping to her side. What do you actually do all day, as a CEO, I mean? That made him glance over. Why do you want to know? Just making conversation. And if I'm playing your wife, I should probably know what you do at work. Callum set down his tablet. Meetings mostly. Strategic planning. Reviewing research and development projects. Right now we're developing medical technology that could revolutionize rural healthcare access. His voice changed when he talked about his work becoming more animated. Jenna found herself genuinely interested. That actually sounds meaningful. It is, he said, and for once he didn't sound defensive. Technology should improve lives, not just make money. Is that what you and Alexander disagreed about? Callum was quiet for a moment. Partly. Alexander wanted faster returns, flashier products. I wanted sustainable growth and meaningful impact. He removed his reading glasses. But the real break came when our mother got sick. I took time away to be with her. Alexander made some decisions in my absence that nearly tanked a key project. When I returned and reversed his choices, he quit. I'm sorry, Jenna said softly. Callum shrugged, but she could see the hurt beneath his composed exterior. Family business can be complicated. All family is complicated, Jenna replied. My sister and I had our share of fights after her divorce. I thought she should stand up more to her ex. She thought I was being too protective. And were you? Callum asked, turning to face her fully. Jenna smiled ruefully. Probably, but those kids mean everything to me. How did you end up raising them with her? Katie's ex left her with nothing. Massive. Debt, no job prospects after being a stay-at-home mom for years. My apartment was too small for all of us, so I moved in with them, helped with bills, childcare, everything. She sighed. Hence the makeup jobs and barista work. Callum watched her face. That's a lot of responsibility you didn't ask for. You. Do what you have to for family, Jenna said simply. They fell into a comfortable silence. Jenna felt her eyelids growing heavy. What time did you say those activities start tomorrow? 9, Callum replied, turning off his tablet. But breakfast is at 8. Jenna murmured, already half asleep. Don't let me oversleep. I won't, he promised, reaching to turn off the lamp between them. In the darkness, Jenna was acutely aware of his presence just feet away. She wondered if he felt the strange connection too, this comfort with a near stranger that shouldn't exist. Good night, Callum, she whispered. Good night, Jenna, he replied, his deep voice soft in the darkness. Just before sleep claimed her, Jenna realized something troubling. For a few moments talking about their families, sharing the quiet intimacy of a bedtime conversation, she'd completely forgotten this was all pretend. The morning sunlight streaming through the balcony doors woke Jenna. She blinked momentarily, disoriented by the luxurious surroundings. Then she felt something warm against her back and froze. Somehow during the night, the careful distance between them had vanished. Callum's arm was draped over her waist, his body curved protectively around hers. His steady breathing told her he was still asleep. Jenna remained perfectly still, her heart racing. She should move away, return to her side of the bed before he woke up. This wasn't part of their arrangement, but it felt nice, safe, real, and that was the most dangerous thing of all. Jenna held her breath as Callum stirred behind her. His arm tightened around her waist for a brief moment before he seemed to realize their position. He quickly pulled away, rolling to his side of the bed. I apologize, he said, his voice rough with sleep. I didn't mean to. It's fine, Jenna cut in, sitting up and keeping her back to him to hide her flushed cheeks. We were asleep. It happens. She slipped out of bed and hurried to the bathroom without looking at him. Once alone, she leaned against the door, taking deep breaths to calm her racing heart. This was supposed to be a simple arrangement: pretend to be married, collect the money, go home. Feelings weren't part of the deal. When Jenna emerged from the bathroom dressed in jeans and a light blue blouse, Callum was already fully dressed in casual but expensive-looking clothes, typing on his phone. Ready for breakfast? He asked without looking up. Nearly, she replied, running a brush through her hair. What exactly are the retreat activities today? Team-building exercises this morning, Callum said, putting his phone away. Then lunch, followed by a panel discussion I'm leading about innovation in healthcare technology. Tonight there's a formal dinner and charity auction. Sounds busy, Jenna commented, applying a touch of makeup. Callum watched her for a moment. You'll be expected to participate in the spouses' activities during my panel. I believe they've arranged a tour of the gardens and a tea. Jenna nodded, trying not to feel nervous about spending time with the other spouses without Callum nearby. I can handle that. He moved to stand behind her as she finished with her makeup, their eyes meeting in the mirror. About last night, what Alexander said, it doesn't matter, Jenna said firmly. I'm not here to judge your business decisions or take sides in your family drama. Something flashed in his eyes, relief maybe, or disappointment. Right, this is just a job for you. The words stung more than they should have. Isn't that what you wanted? Someone to play a role? Before Callum could answer, a knock sounded at their door. Breakfast in 15 minutes, called a cheerful voice, Evelyn's. We'll be right down, Mother, Callum responded, his eyes still locked with Jenna's in the mirror. For a moment, neither of them moved. Then Callum stepped away, breaking the tension. We should go. Breakfast was served on the sunny terrace overlooking the gardens. Several couples were already seated at the long table when Callum and Jenna arrived. Evelyn waved them over to two empty chairs. "Good morning, you two," she said warmly. "Sleep well." Jenna felt heat rise to her cheeks, but managed a smile. "Very well, thank you. The room is beautiful. I had it specially prepared," Evelyn said with a wink. "That's the bed Callum was conceived in, you know." "Mother," Callum groaned, nearly choking on his coffee. Evelyn laughed. "Oh, don't be such a prude, darling. You're married now." She turned to the table at large. "Everyone, for those who weren't at dinner last night, this is my daughter-in-law, Jenna." As introductions went around the table, Callum's hand found Jenna's under the tablecloth, giving it a reassuring squeeze. The simple gesture steadied her. After breakfast, the group moved to the sprawling back lawn where a cheerful facilitator waited to lead the team-building exercises. Jenna found herself paired with Callum for the first activity, a trust fall. "Ready to catch me?" she asked nervously, as she prepared to fall backward into his arms. "Always," he replied, and something in his tone made her heart skip. When it was his turn, Jenna worried her petite frame wouldn't be able to support his weight, but Callum fell gently, and she caught him with surprising ease. His back was warm against her chest, and for a moment he leaned into her before straightening. "Good catch," he murmured. The morning continued with various activities designed to build trust and communication. Jenna was surprised to discover that she and Callum worked well together, anticipating each other's moves almost instinctively. During a short break, Evelyn approached them, looking pleased. "You two are naturals together," she said, "just like Callum's father and I were." "Mum's a romantic," Callum explained to Jenna after his mother moved away. "She and my father were married for 35 years before he passed. They must have been very happy," Jenna said. Callum's expression softened. "They were. Even when they disagreed, there was never any doubt they were on the same side." He gazed across the lawn, lost in thought. "I didn't appreciate what they had until it was gone." The vulnerability in his voice touched something in Jenna. Without thinking, she reached up and brushed a strand of hair from his forehead. His eyes met hers, surprised but warm. "Callum," David Mercer's voice shattered the moment. "We need to review the panel notes before lunch." Callum stepped back, his professional mask sliding back into place. "Of course, excuse me, Jenna." As he walked away with David, Susan Mercer sidled up beside Jenna. "Enjoying playing house with the CEO?" she asked, her smile not reaching her. "Eyes, pardon me?" Jenna asked, tensing. Susan laughed lightly. "Oh, don't look so alarmed. I'm just making conversation. It must be quite an adjustment, moving from whatever you did before to this world." "I'm still a makeup artist," Jenna said evenly. "Marriage didn't change my career." "How progressive of Callum," Susan remarked. "Though I imagine it won't be long before you're running a charity or sitting on some museum board. That's what wives in this circle typically do." Before Jenna could respond, Alexander appeared beside them, looking more put together than he had the previous night. "Ladies," he greeted them. "Susan, could I steal my sister-in-law for a moment?" Susan smiled tightly. "Of course. We'll chat more at the tea, Jenna." As Susan walked away, Alexander guided Jenna toward a stone bench near a flowering hedge. "Don't let her get to you," he said. "Susan's been trying to climb the social ladder for years. She sees you as competition." "I'm not competing for anything," Jenna replied cautiously. Alexander studied her face. "You really aren't, are you? That's refreshing." He sat on the bench, gesturing for her to join him. "I owe you an apology for last night. I was testing you." "Testing me?" "My brother hasn't had the best judgment when it comes to relationships. His last girlfriend was only interested in what Callum could do for her career." Jenna thought about the $10,000 waiting for her at the end of this weekend and felt a stab of guilt. "You're protective of him," Alexander laughed. "Don't sound so surprised. We may have our differences, but he's still my brother." His expression grew serious. "The thing is, I've never seen him look at anyone the way he looks at you." Jenna's heart stuttered. "How does he look at me?" "Like you're real," Alexander said simply. "Like he sees you." A bell rang, signaling lunch. Alexander stood, offering Jenna his arm. "Shall we? I promise to behave myself this time." Lunch was served buffet style on the terrace. Callum found Jenna as she was filling her plate. "Everything okay?" he asked quietly. "I saw you talking with Alexander." "He was actually being nice," Jenna said. "Apologized for last night." Callum looked surprised. "That's unexpected. He seems to care about you, in his own way." Callum's jaw tightened. "Alexander cares about Alexander. Don't be fooled by the charm." After lunch, the group split up. The executives headed to the conference room for the panel discussion, while the spouses gathered for a garden tour led by Evelyn. As they strolled among the meticulously maintained flower beds, Evelyn linked her arm through Jenna's. "You've been good for my son," she said. "I see a lightness in him I haven't seen in years." Guilt gnawed at Jenna. "He's good for me too," she said, and was surprised to realize she meant it. "When I was diagnosed last year," Evelyn continued, "I worried I might not see him truly happy. He's always been so focused on the company, on taking care of everyone else." She squeezed Jenna's arm. "Thank you for bringing him back to life." Jenna felt like the worst person in the world. This kind woman was thanking her for a lie. The garden tour ended at a charming gazebo where afternoon tea was set up. As they sat enjoying tiny sandwiches and pastries, Susan Mercer took the seat next to Jenna. "So tell us," Susan said loudly. Enough for all the women to hear. "How did Callum propose? He's not exactly known for his romantic gestures." All eyes turned to Jenna. She took a sip of tea to buy time, frantically trying to remember if this detail had been included in their backstory. It hadn't. "It was actually very simple," she began, deciding to speak from the heart. "We were at my apartment. I'd had a terrible day. A bride had freaked out at the last minute and changed her entire look. My sister's ex was late with child support again, and the kids were both sick." She smiled at the memory she was creating. Callum showed up with soup for the kids and takeout for us. After the children were asleep, we sat on my tiny balcony with these mismatched mugs of tea, and he just asked me. "No ring, no grand gesture?" one of the women asked, sounding disappointed. "He had a ring," Jenna said, "but what mattered was that he saw what I needed that day. Not a fancy dinner or a public spectacle, but just support, partnership." She twisted the simple band Callum had given her to wear for the weekend. "That's worth more than any diamond." The women exchanged glances, some looking touched, others skeptical. Evelyn dabbed at her eyes with a napkin. "That sounds exactly like my son," she said proudly, quiet but thoughtful. After tea, the women dispersed to rest and prepare for the evening's formal dinner and charity auction. Jenna returned to the suite, relieved to find it empty. She needed time to collect her thoughts, to remind herself that none of this was real. She took a long shower, letting the hot water wash away her confusion. When she emerged, wrapped in a plush towel, she was startled to find Callum sitting on the edge of the bed, his tie loosened and jacket discarded. "Sorry," he said, quickly averting his eyes. "I didn't hear the shower." "It's fine," Jenna replied, clutching the towel tighter. "How was your panel?" "Productive." He stood, moving toward the balcony to give her space. "I'll just wait out here while you dress." Jenna slipped into the bathroom with her dress for the evening, a simple black cocktail dress that was the nicest thing she owned. When she emerged, Callum was still on the balcony, looking out at the garden below. "You can come in now," she called. He turned and his eyes widened slightly at the sight of her in the fitted dress. "You look beautiful," he said. "Thank you," she replied, feeling self-conscious under his gaze. "Is this appropriate for tonight?" "Perfect," he assured her, stepping closer. "But it's missing something." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. "This was my mother's. She insisted I give it to you to wear tonight." Jenna opened the box to find a delicate diamond pendant on a white gold chain. "Callum, I can't—" "Please," he said softly. It would mean a lot to her. Hesitantly, Jenna nodded. Callum took the necklace and moved behind her. His fingers brushed her neck as he fastened the clasp, sending shivers down her spine. "There," he said, his voice low near her ear. "Now you truly look like Mrs. Hayes." Jenna turned to face him, acutely aware of how close they were standing. "Callum, I need to tell you something." His eyes searched hers. "What is it?" "At the tea today, they asked about our engagement. I had to make something up. I told them, you proposed at my apartment after bringing soup for the kids and takeout for us, that it was simple but meaningful." She looked down, embarrassed. "I wanted to warn you in case someone mentions it." To her surprise, Callum lifted her chin gently with his finger. "That sounds exactly like something I would do," he said, a small smile playing at his lips. "Really? Really?" His gaze dropped to her lips for a fleeting second before he stepped back. "We should head downstairs. The auction begins soon." The ballroom was transformed for the evening, with round tables elegantly set and a stage at the front for the charity auction. Callum led Jenna to a table near the front, where Evelyn was already seated with the Wilsons and the Mercers. "Jenna—" "Darling," Evelyn exclaimed, "you're wearing Richard's pendant. It looks beautiful on you." "Thank you for lending it to me," Jenna said, touching the diamond resting against her collarbone. "Lending?" Evelyn looked confused. "Oh no, dear, it's a gift. Richard always wanted his daughter-in-law to have it." Before Jenna could protest, the evening's MC took the stage to welcome everyone. Throughout dinner, Callum kept his hand on the back of Jenna's chair, occasionally leaning close to whisper comments about the other guests that made her laugh. The auction began after the meal. Various luxury items were up for bid: exotic vacations, fine art, exclusive experiences. Jenna watched amazed as hundreds of thousands of dollars were pledged for charity. "And now," the auctioneer announced, "we have a special item, a weekend cooking class for two with celebrity chef Marco Romano at his private villa in Tuscany." Excited murmurs rippled through the crowd. Beside her, Jenna felt Callum tense slightly. "Bidding starts at $20,000, the auctioneer called. Several hands shot up. The price quickly climbed to $50,000, then $75,000. $100,000, called a familiar voice from the back. Alexander stood, champagne glass in hand, looking directly at their table. $150, Callum counted. Immediately, a hush fell over the room as the brothers locked eyes across the crowded ballroom. $200, Alexander said calmly. $250, Callum responded without hesitation. Jenna placed her hand on Callum's arm. "What are you doing?" she whispered. "He knows," Callum said under his breath. "Marco Romano was our father's favorite chef. Mother always wanted to take his class." The bidding continued until it reached $500,000. The room was now completely silent, all eyes on the Hayes brothers. $550,000, Alexander called, a challenging glint in his eye. Callum hesitated. Beside him, Evelyn touched his hand. "It's just an auction, darling. Let it go." But Jenna could see the determination in Callum's jaw. This wasn't just about a cooking class anymore. "Wait," she said suddenly, rising to her feet. All eyes turned to her. "May I make a suggestion?" The auctioneer nodded, looking curious. "Given the exceptional generosity of both Mr. Hayes and his brother," Jenna said clearly, "perhaps Chef Romano would consider offering 2 weekends. Both gentlemen could make their donations to this worthy cause, and both could enjoy the experience." A murmur of approval ran through the crowd. The auctioneer conferred briefly with someone off stage, then nodded. "Chef Romano is delighted to accommodate this arrangement, especially for such generous donations." Applause broke out. Callum stared at Jenna with an unreadable expression. Across the room, Alexander raised his glass in a small salute. As the evening wound down and guests began to depart, Alexander approached their table. "Clever solution," he said to Jenna. Then, to Callum, "Perhaps Mother would like to join me for my weekend with Chef Romano." Evelyn's face lit up. "I would love that, Alexander." She turned to Callum. "And you can take Jenna for yours. A second honeymoon of sorts." Jenna felt her cheeks heat up. There would be no second honeymoon because there had been no first one. By Monday, this would all be over. "Excuse me," she said suddenly, needing some air. "I'll be right back." She slipped out of the ballroom onto a small terrace. The night air was cool against her flushed skin. She leaned against the stone balustrade, taking deep breaths. "Are you all right?" Callum's voice came from behind her. She turned to find him, watching her with concern. "Just needed some air." He joined her at the railing, close enough that she could feel the warmth of him. "What you did in there, with the auction, thank you. It seemed like the logical solution, she said with a shrug. Most people wouldn't have thought of it. He studied her face in the moonlight. You keep surprising me, Jenna Moore. Is that a good thing? Yes, he said softly. It's a very good thing. A cool breeze made Jenna shiver. Without hesitation, Callum removed his jacket and draped it over her shoulders. The weight of it was comforting, and it carried his scent, something subtle and expensive, but underneath that, just him. We should go back inside, she said, making no move to do so. We should, he agreed, staying exactly where he was. Their eyes met and held. For one breathless moment, Jenna thought he might kiss her. She found herself hoping he would. Instead, Callum stepped back slightly. Jenna, this arrangement, it's not what I expected. What do you mean? He ran a hand through, his hair looking uncharacteristically uncertain. I mean that pretending to be married to you doesn't feel like pretending anymore. Her heart raced. Callum, I know, he cut in quickly. You're here to do a job. I'm paying you to play a role. I have no right to complicate things. You're not complicating things, Jenna said quietly. I am. Callum looked at her questioningly. Because I feel it too, she admitted. For a long moment they stood in silence, the weight of their confessions hanging between them. Then, from inside, Evelyn's voice called Callum's name. We should go back, Jenna said reluctantly. Callum nodded, but before they turned to leave, he took her hand in his, interlacing their fingers in a gesture that felt more intimate than any kiss could have been. As they walked back into the ballroom hand in hand, Jenna wondered how she would ever go back to her real life after tomorrow, because for the first time in years this, being with Callum, feeling his hand in hers, felt more real than anything waiting for her back home. Sunday morning dawned bright and clear. Jenna woke to find herself once again in Callum's arms, but this time neither of them pulled away. For a few peaceful moments they lay together in comfortable silence, his heartbeat steady against her back. Good morning, he murmured, his voice rough with sleep. Morning, she replied, turning to face him. In the soft morning light, with his hair tousled and his expression unguarded, he looked younger, more approachable than the stern CEO the world knew. What time is it? She asked. Callum glanced at the clock. Just after 7, we don't need to be downstairs until 9. The retreat wraps up with brunch and closing remarks, then everyone heads home. His arms tightened slightly around her. Tomorrow. This ends, the reminder sent a pang through Jenna's chest. Callum, what are we doing? He sighed, brushing a strand of hair from her face. I don't know, I didn't plan for this. For what? For you, he said simply. For how real this would feel. Jenna sat up, putting some distance between them. But it's not real, is it? Monday morning, I go back to my apartment and my jobs, and you go back to your company. I'll have my $10,000 and you'll have... What exactly? Callum sat up as well, his expression troubled. Is that what you want? To just go back to your life as if this never happened? What I want doesn't matter, Jenna said, getting out of bed. This was a business arrangement from the start. What happens now wasn't part of the deal. So we just pretend the feelings aren't real? Callum asked, a rare edge of frustration in his voice. Jenna turned to face him. Are they real, Callum? Or is this just the situation? Playing house in this beautiful place, having everyone think we're in love. How do we know what's genuine? And what's performance anymore? Before he could answer, a knock sounded at their door. Room service, called a cheerful voice. Callum ran a hand through his hair. I didn't order anything. He pulled on a t-shirt and opened the door to find a smiling staff member with a covered tray. Compliments of Mrs. Hayes Sr., the young man said. She said to tell you both to take your time this morning. After the server departed, Callum brought the tray to the bed. Fresh coffee, warm pastries, fruit, and a note in elegant handwriting. To my dear children, enjoy your last morning of peace before returning to the real world. With all my love, Evelyn. Your mother is very thoughtful, Jenna said softly. She likes you, Callum replied, pouring coffee into 2 delicate cups. She hasn't stopped talking about what a perfect match we are. Guilt twisted in Jenna's stomach. Callum, we can't keep lying to her. He handed her a cup, their fingers brushing. I know. They ate breakfast in a weighted silence, both aware of the ticking clock on their arrangement. When they finally dressed and headed downstairs, the easy intimacy of the morning had been replaced by an uncertain tension. The final brunch was held on the main lawn under a white tent. Round tables were set with flowers and fine china, while servers circulated with champagne and orange juice. Evelyn waved them over to her table, where Alexander was already seated. "There they are," Evelyn said happily. "I hope you enjoyed your breakfast in bed." "It was perfect, thank you," Jenna replied, accepting a kiss on the cheek from her mother-in-law. Alexander studied them both with curious eyes. "You two look intense this morning. Trouble in paradise?" "Just tired," Callum said shortly. "It's been a full weekend." Before Alexander could press further, David Mercer approached their table. "Callum, could I speak with you before you leave? There's a situation with the Singapore office that needs your attention." Callum squeezed Jenna's hand. "I'll be right back," he promised before following David away from the tent. "I should check on the kitchen," Evelyn said, rising from her seat. "They're preparing gift baskets for everyone to take home." Suddenly alone with Alexander, Jenna braced herself for more probing questions or barbed comments. Instead, he leaned forward with surprising sincerity. "He's different with you," Alexander said. "Happier, more like the brother I grew up with." Jenna looked down at her champagne flute. "People change." "Not Callum, not for years anyway, not since he took over the company and decided he had to be the perfect CEO, the perfect son." Alexander's eyes were serious. "Until you." "You don't know me," Jenna said quietly. "I know enough," he replied. "I know my brother, and I know you're not what I expected when I heard he'd married someone no one had met." "What did you expect?" Alexander shrugged. "Someone like Susan Mercer. Polished, ambitious, perfect for appearances but with nothing underneath." He studied her face. "You're the opposite. Real, sometimes awkwardly so. You care about him, not what he can do for you." The irony made Jenna wince. If Alexander knew about the $10,000, he'd see her exactly as he'd feared. Someone using Callum. "It's complicated," she said finally. "Isn't it always?" Alexander smiled ruefully. "Just don't give up on him too easily. My brother needs someone who sees past the CEO to the man underneath." Before Jenna could respond, Callum returned, looking troubled. "Everything okay?" she asked. "Just work," he said, but his expression remained tight. The brunch continued with speeches from Evelyn and several of the executives about the success of the retreat. As the event drew to a close, guests began saying their goodbyes. Jenna found herself genuinely sad to be leaving Evelyn, who enveloped her in a warm embrace. "You must come visit again soon," Evelyn insisted. "Perhaps for the holidays. I want to hear all about that cooking class in Tuscany when you two go." Jenna forced a smile, her heart heavy with the knowledge that there would be no future visits, no cooking class together. "Thank you for everything, Evelyn." "Thank you, my dear," Evelyn replied, clasping Jenna's hands, "for bringing my son back to me." As they walked toward the car that would take them back to the city, Alexander approached one last time. To Jenna's surprise, he hugged her briefly, then offered his hand to Callum. "Good to see you, brother," he said. "Maybe we could grab a drink sometime. Talk about that healthcare initiative you mentioned." Callum looked momentarily stunned before shaking Alexander's hand. "I'd like that." The drive back to the city was filled with a heavy silence. Jenna watched the countryside roll by, trying to sort through her conflicted emotions. Beside her, Callum worked on his tablet, occasionally taking calls about urgent business matters. The CEO was firmly back in place, the vulnerable man from this morning hidden away. As they approached the city, Jenna finally broke the silence. "Where should the driver take me? My apartment or somewhere else?" Callum looked up from his work, his expression unreadable. "I thought we might go to my place first, to talk." "About what?" "About what happens next." He set his tablet aside. "Unless you'd rather just end it here." Jenna thought about the easy option, going home, depositing her check, returning to her normal life. But something in Callum's eyes made her nod. "Okay, your place." Callum's penthouse was exactly what Jenna had expected, sleek, modern, and immaculately decorated, with floor-to-ceiling windows offering a spectacular view of the city. Yet, despite its perfection, it felt impersonal, like a high-end hotel rather than a home. "Can I get you something to drink?" Callum asked, setting down her suitcase in the entryway. "Water, please." As he disappeared into the kitchen, Jenna wandered into the living room. There were almost no personal touches, no photos, no mementos. The only exception was a small framed picture on a side table of a much younger Callum with his parents and Alexander, all smiling on what looked like a sailboat. "That was the summer before my father got sick," Callum said, returning with 2 glasses of water. "The last vacation we took as a family." Jenna accepted the glass. "You look happy." "I was," he said simply, sitting on the sleek sofa and gesturing for her to join him. For a moment, neither spoke. Then Callum reached into his jacket pocket and removed an envelope, placing it on the coffee table between them. "Sure payment," he said. 10,000 as agreed." Jenna stared at the envelope, a tangible reminder of the transaction at the heart of their weekend. "Thank you." "Jenna," Callum began, his voice unusually hesitant. "These past 3 days were a job," she finished for him, even as her heart argued otherwise. "A role I played just like you asked." His jaw tightened. "Is that all it was to you?" "Does it matter?" she asked, unable to meet his eyes. "Your mother got her weekend with her son and daughter-in-law. You avoided uncomfortable questions. Mission accomplished." "Look at me," Callum said quietly. When she did, the intensity in his eyes made her breath catch. "Tell me it wasn't real," he challenged. "Tell me you felt nothing, and I'll accept it. We'll go our separate ways." Jenna wanted to lie. It would be easier, cleaner, but she couldn't. "It wasn't all pretend," she admitted, "but that doesn't mean it could work in the real world." "Why not?" She laughed without humor. "Where do I start? You're a billionaire CEO. I'm a makeup artist who makes coffee to pay the bills. You live in this perfect penthouse. I share a small house with my sister and her kids. We're from different worlds, Callum." "I don't care about any of that," he insisted. "You say that now, but what about when I can't attend some important business? Dinner because I'm working late at the coffee shop? Or when your colleagues look at me like Susan Mercer did, like I don't belong in your world?" Callum moved closer, taking her hands in his. "Those things only matter if we let them matter. I've spent years surrounded by people who fit perfectly into my world, and not one of them has made me feel the way you do." "And how is that?" she asked softly. "Seen," he said simply. "You don't look at the CEO or the bank account. You see me. Even when I was paying you to pretend, you were more genuine than anyone I've known in years." Jenna felt tears prick at her eyes. "I lied to your mother." "To everyone." "We both did," Callum acknowledged. "But what if we stopped? What if we tried something real? Just like that?" "No," he said, a hint of a smile touching his lips. "Not just like that. I want to date you, Jenna Moore. Properly. No. Pretending, no audience. Just us figuring out if what we felt this weekend can grow into something real." Hope bloomed in Jenna's chest, but caution held it in check. "And if it doesn't work? Then at least we'll know we tried," he said. "But I think it will," she bit her lip, still uncertain. "Your mother will have to understand that our timing was a bit unconventional." "That's one way to put it," Jenna said with a small laugh. Callum's expression grew serious again. "I'm not asking for promises, Jenna. Just a chance. Dinner. Tomorrow night. A real first date." The sincerity in his eyes melted her last reservations. "Okay," she agreed softly. "Dinner." His smile, open and genuine, transformed his face. Callum leaned forward, his hand gently cupping her cheek. "May I?" he whispered. Jenna nodded, her heart racing. Unlike the practiced affection they'd displayed all weekend, this was real. Their first true kiss, with no audience, no pretense. His lips were soft against hers, the kiss tender and questioning at first, then deepening as she responded. When they finally broke apart, Jenna was breathless, her hands somehow having found their way to his chest. "That definitely wasn't pretend," Callum murmured, his forehead resting against hers. "Definitely not," she agreed. Later, after they'd talked, for hours about everything and nothing, her childhood dreams, his favorite books, the places they both wanted to see, Callum called his driver to take Jenna home. As they stood at his door, he held the envelope out to her again. "Take it," he said. "A deal is a deal." Jenna hesitated, then shook her head. "It feels wrong now." "Then consider it a loan," he suggested. "For your sister's rent, and that water. Heater you mentioned, you can pay me back however you want, whenever you can." His understanding of her pride touched her. Jenna accepted the envelope. "Thank you. Tomorrow at 7, he confirmed. "I'll pick you up." She smiled. "It's a date." The next 2 weeks passed in a whirlwind. True to his word, Callum took Jenna on proper dates, dinners where they talked until the restaurant closed, a private tour of an art museum, an afternoon sailing on the lake. Each moment together felt more natural than the last, as if they were uncovering something that had always been there beneath the surface. Callum met Katie and the kids, bringing pizza and board games and patiently answering 7-year-old Dylan's endless questions about his cool car. Jenna spent evenings at his penthouse, gradually filling its perfect emptiness with small touches of herself. A throw blanket here, a potted plant there. They agreed to take things slow physically, both wanting to build something solid first. But their kisses grew longer, their goodbyes more reluctant. Callum even began speaking with Alexander again. The brothers met for lunch, taking tentative steps toward repairing their relationship. "He asked about you," Callum told Jenna afterward. "I think he knew before we did." Everything was falling into place, until a business trip took Callum to Tokyo for 3 days. He called every night as promised, but when he returned, something was different. He seemed distracted, distant. "Is everything okay?" Jenna asked. As they sat in his living room one evening, the silence between them growing uncomfortable. "Just work," he said, the same answer he'd given at the retreat. This time she didn't believe him. "Callum, talk to me," she insisted. "Whatever it is, I have to go back to Japan," he cut in, "for a while this time." Jenna felt her heart sink. "How long is a while?" 6 months minimum. He ran a hand through his hair. "We're expanding into the Asian market. I need to be there to oversee it personally." "Oh." Her voice sounded small even to her own ears. "When do you leave?" "Next week." He finally met her eyes. "Come with me." Jenna blinked, certain she'd misheard. "What?" "Come to Tokyo," he repeated. "We could see if this us works there as well as it does here." For a moment Jenna was tempted, but reality quickly asserted itself. "I can't just leave, Callum. My sister, the kids, they depend on me. My jobs, my responsibilities." "I understand," he said, disappointment evident in his voice. "It was a lot to ask." "It is," she agreed gently. "We've only been dating for 2 weeks." "It feels longer," he said quietly. "Because we started with a marriage," Jenna reminded him with a sad smile. "Most people don't do it backward like that." The week passed too quickly. Jenna helped Callum pack, researched places he should visit in Tokyo, promised to video call regularly. But as his departure grew closer, a feeling of inevitability settled over her. Long-distance relationships were hard enough without adding their vastly different lives to the equation. The night before he was to leave, Jenna came to his penthouse for dinner. They'd both been careful all evening, too polite, too controlled. When Callum excused himself to take a business call, Jenna wandered to the windows, looking out at the city lights as tears threatened. "I'm sorry about that," Callum said, returning, to find her still staring out at the skyline. "Jenna, what's wrong?" She turned to face him, summoning her courage. "This isn't going to work, is it?" His expression fell. "Don't say that. 6 months apart, when we've barely had time to start something real. Different time zones, different worlds." She shook her head. "I think we both know the odds." Callum closed the distance between them, taking her hands in his. "I don't care about odds, I care about you." "And I care about you," she said softly. "That's why I think we should be honest with ourselves." "And what's the honest truth, Jenna?" His voice was tight with emotion. "Tell me what you really think is happening here." Tears spilled down her cheeks. I think we got caught up in a fantasy. Playing house in a beautiful setting, everyone believing we were in love. Maybe we started to believe it too. That's not what happened, Callum insisted. What I feel for you is real. Maybe it is, she acknowledged. But sometimes reality isn't enough. You have your life, your responsibilities. I have mine. We tried to bridge two different worlds, and for a little while it seemed possible. But your world is pulling you to Tokyo and mine is keeping me here. So that's it. Anger flashed in his eyes. You're giving up before we've really started? I'm being practical, Jenna said. Something I thought you'd understand. This isn't about being practical. This is about being afraid, Callum replied. You're looking for excuses because you're scared this could be real. The accusation stung because there was truth in it. Maybe I am afraid, she admitted. Afraid of falling for someone whose life will never truly align with mine. Afraid of what happens when the fantasy ends and reality sets in. Callum's jaw tightened. I see. He stepped back, his walls visibly rising. I won't beg you to believe in us, Jenna. I'm not asking you to, she said softly. They stood in silence, the city lights twinkling behind them like the stars they couldn't see. I should go, Jenna finally said, gathering her purse. Callum nodded stiffly. I'll have the driver take you. Home. Their goodbye was painfully formal, so different from the easy intimacy they'd shared just days before. As the elevator doors closed between them, Jenna felt a piece of her heart staying behind, with the man who had somehow, against all odds, come to mean so much to her in such a short time. 2 weeks passed. Jenna threw herself into work, picking up extra shifts at the coffee shop and booking as many makeup clients as possible. She helped Katie find a better-paying job, fixed the water heater in her apartment, and tried not to check her phone every 5 minutes for messages that didn't come. Callum had texted once to let her know he'd arrived safely in Tokyo. She'd responded with a simple thank you. Nothing more. Every night she checked social media and business news, catching glimpses of him at corporate events in Japan. He looked the same, handsome, composed, successful. But she noticed the shadows under his eyes, the way his smile never quite reached them. One rainy evening, as Jenna closed up the coffee shop alone, her phone rang with an unexpected name. Alexander Hayes. Jenna, he said when she answered. Have you spoken to my brother lately? No, she admitted. We decided it was best to end things before he left. Alexander sighed heavily. I was afraid of that. He's not doing well, you know. Oh, the business is fine. Callum's always perfect at work. But my mother says he sounds terrible when she calls. He's not sleeping. Guilt twisted in Jenna's stomach. What do you want me to do, Alexander? Fly to Tokyo? Would you? He asked seriously. If you could. The question caught her off guard. Would she? The honest answer came immediately. Yes, that's what I thought, Alexander said. Check your email. After hanging up, Jenna opened her inbox to find a message from Alexander containing a first-class plane ticket to Tokyo, departing the next evening. He'd never ask you himself, Alexander's note read. He's too proud. But some things are worth fighting for. The car will pick you up at 6 p.m. Jenna stared at the screen, her heart racing. Could she really do this? Drop everything and fly halfway around the world for a relationship that had barely begun? When she got home, she found Katie in the kitchen helping the kids with homework. I need to talk to you, Jenna said, sitting heavily at the table. Katie looked up, concerned. What's wrong? Jenna explained everything. The ticket, Alexander's call, her feelings for Callum that refused to fade despite their agreement to end things. So what's stopping you? Katie asked when she finished. You, the kids, my jobs, Jenna began. Katie cut her off. We'll be fine. I have the new job now. The kids are doing better. You've put your life on hold for us long enough. She reached across the table to squeeze Jenna's hand. It's time you did something for yourself. But what if I go all that way and he doesn't want to see me? Katie smiled knowingly. His brother wouldn't have sent the ticket if he didn't think otherwise. The next evening, with a hastily packed suitcase and her heart in her throat, Jenna found herself on a plane to Tokyo. The 13-hour flight gave her plenty of time to second-guess her decision, to imagine all the ways Callum might reject her, to wonder if she was making the biggest mistake of her life. By the time she arrived, exhausted and nervous, at the address Alexander had provided, a high-rise apartment building in an upscale district of Tokyo, Jenna had nearly talked herself out of the whole thing, but she'd come too far to turn back now. The elevator ride to the top floor felt endless. When the doors finally opened directly into a penthouse similar to Callum's back home, Jenna stepped out hesitantly, calling his name. No answer. She ventured further in, noting the signs of his presence. A laptop on the coffee table, a half-empty cup of coffee, suit jacket thrown over a chair. But no Callum. Jenna was about to call Alexander when she noticed the glass doors leading to a balcony were slightly ajar. She approached cautiously and saw him, standing with his back to her, looking out at the Tokyo skyline glittering in the early evening light. For a moment, she simply watched him, taking in the strong line of his shoulders, the familiar way he stood with his hands in his pockets. Then, gathering her courage, she stepped onto the balcony. "The view's almost as nice as yours back home," she said softly. Callum froze, then turned slowly, disbelief written across his features. "Jenna?" "Hi," she said, suddenly feeling foolish. What if Alexander had been wrong? What if Callum had moved on? How did you... He couldn't seem to finish a thought. "Your brother," she explained. "He sent me a ticket, said you weren't sleeping." Callum's expression shifted from shock to something softer, more vulnerable. "Alexander did that." Jenna nodded, taking a tentative step closer. "I can leave if you want. I needed to see you." "No," he said quickly. "Don't leave." They stood looking at each other, the city lights glimmering around them, the distance between them both physical and emotional. "I made a mistake," Jenna finally said, her voice catching. "I got scared and I pushed you away. I told myself it was because our worlds were too different, but the truth is I was afraid of how much I was starting to need you." Callum moved toward her, hope and caution warring in his eyes. "And now I'm still afraid," she admitted. "But I'm more afraid of never knowing what could have been, of letting fear make my decisions." She took a deep breath. "So I'm here, if you still want to try." For what felt like an eternity, Callum just looked at her. Then, wordlessly, he closed the distance between them, pulling her into his arms with such force that she gasped. His lips found hers in a kiss that spoke of longing, of sleepless nights, of the pain of separation. When they finally broke apart, both breathless, he rested his forehead against hers. "I thought I'd lost you," he whispered. "I'm sorry," she said. "I should have—" "No," he interrupted. "I should have fought harder, should have made you see that none of the differences between us matter." His arms tightened around her. "Because the truth is, Jenna Moore, I've fallen in love with you. And distance, jobs, different worlds, none of it changes that." Tears spilled down Jenna's cheeks. "I love you too," she whispered. Callum brushed her tears away with gentle fingers. "So, what now?" "I don't know," she admitted. "I didn't exactly plan past showing up at your door." He laughed, the sound warming her heart. "How long can you stay?" "A week," she said. "Katie insisted I take the time off." "A week," he repeated thoughtfully. "Not enough, but it's a start." He took her face in his hands. "We'll figure out the rest as we go, together." As he kissed her again, the Tokyo skyline sparkling around them like stars, Jenna knew they'd face challenges. Distance, different responsibilities, two worlds trying to merge. None of it would be easy. But standing in Callum's arms, feeling his heart beat against hers, she also knew they'd find a way. Because what had started as a weekend pretending to be in love had become something neither of them had expected. Something real. Something worth fighting for. 6 months later, as Jenna waited at the airport for Callum's return flight from Tokyo, she fingered the key to their new home. Not his penthouse, not her small apartment, but a place they'd chosen together that sat somewhere in between their worlds. A place where her sister and the kids could visit comfortably. A place where Callum could leave his CEO persona at the door, When he finally emerged from the gate, looking tired but happy, his face lit up at the sight of her. As she ran into his arms, Jenna marveled at how a simple business arrangement, just for the weekend, had changed everything. Sometimes the best things in life came from the most unexpected beginnings. And sometimes, just sometimes, pretending. To be in love was the first step to finding the real thing. The end.